Right, trouble in education. Remember also today is a big day for the KCSE, where we are expecting the announcement of the release of 2023 KCSE. If right from Eldoret, the Education Cabinet Secretary will be, of course, officiating that. Also the President, presumably, or we expecting him to also be adding to the gaiety of the occasion today from Eldoret. We shall be telling you the fate of the 903,260 candidates sat for the KCSE examinations, and that will be happening in Eldoret. As you can see it, this also is the focus of the headlines today as our children are heading back to school for the new calendar, or the New Year's calendar. Trouble in education, new academic year, schools reopen today while facing numerous difficulties, mainly inadequate funding, crowding, insufficient number of teachers, and weary staff, mulling a strike over a litany of grievances. Will the Ministry of Education step up to the challenge? That is a probing question that is on the front page of the Standard this morning. We have also a statement there from Kahi Indemuli, who's the chair of CASHA, and he says the economic situation we are in is quite bad for both parents and schools, but parents must pay fees, and thus should get into an arrangement to ensure that happens. And we can see also that on the front page of the People Daily, key changes as school reopens. Key changes as schools reopen, that is the splash today. We have reduced lessons at pre-primary junior school, integration of studies to ease learners' load, first term to last 13 weeks. Also capitation for first term now set at 31.34 billion shillings. 844 curriculum gives way to CBC. This story on page 4, 5 and 6 of the People Daily this morning. We have the Star has not really focused on the academia, but Ruto and others pile pressure on the judiciary. That has been one also of a pocket issue that has been hogging the headlines lately. And we also saw just some of the statements that came from Eldoret, where the President was also attending a church service yesterday regarding the judiciary seeming to be slowing his role as far as their slugfest is concerned. Ruto and others pile pressure on the judiciary. UDA leaders accuse judges of overstepping mandate and vow to deal with ignorant judiciary officers. As you've heard also from the Deputy Speaker, that she'll make sure that they're dealt with, whatever that means. This is a story that you want to follow on page 4 and 5 of the Star. The Daily Nation is on the crunch as far as cash is concerned. As schools reopen today, there's a headache, and head teachers of public institutions are worried low today as learning resumes after 2 months break, because the money that was disbursed by government last week is yet to hit their accounts. Meanwhile, some secondary schools have moved to increase fees, further burdening parents who are struggling under hard economic times. And this is on page 6 and 7. Also, you had from Emmanuel Tour there, all manner of charges are coming to bear. That was actually Alan Ochanda saying even motivation fees and magazine fees as well, they're tagged or itemized in the invoice. That is a story that you want to follow inside the dailies this morning. Holding court today with Dr. James Nikal, who's a member of Parliament for Seme. Also, we have with us Dr. Makali Mulu, Member of Parliament, Kitui Central. We're joined by Senator Danson Mungatana, who's the Senator of Tana River. And we were just talking about the birthday, that is the 79th birthday of Raila Odinga. This is what we were on before we took a short break, and we were to hear from Dr. Makali Muli. I'd raised the question that David Murada took a handy opportunity to make sure that that particular issue of candidacy of 2027 also is brought to bear during that particular birthday, that is going to be firmly in the polls. That is Raila Odinga. And your leader, Wiper leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, should slow his roll, chill his horses, as they put it.
Maybe let me comment up on the birthday first. And I think joining my colleague, Honorable Nikal, is saying that we were happy that our leader has turned 79, and we wish him all the best, even as he moves to join the club of the Judiciary. And as you said, and those who also
is he to join?
Yes, he now moves to join.
Oh, no, okay.
In another 1 year, he will be joining, I'm sure, as you said. But all said and done, the cake, when you look at the cake and the different parts of the country, because it was being done in different parts of the country, there was a very clear message. And for me, I don't think that message was anything new to Kenyans. The issue of cut the taxes, cut food prices, let the judiciary free. These are things which Kenyans are talking on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know that was what triggering what we saw in Nairobi, where people were out just to celebrate their leader were being tear-gassed. And I really want to agree with sentiments by my colleague, Honorable Nikal, that this is not what we want to see in this year, 2024, being a new year. We want a year where there is strict adherence to the rule of law, and where people also take responsibility for their action. People are accountable. For example, the IG now, this was the second time he was saying he's going to take action after the Voi demolitions. And it's not good enough when things have happened to say you will take action. Because, for example, if you look at the Voi demolitions, already the houses have been demolished. Even if you take action, obvious, you will not be able to rebuild those houses. People are already out there in the code. It's time to take children back to school. You are causing unnecessary expenditure for the households after demolishing them, because they must look for alternative accommodation. So really, these are things should not be happening if there was proper planning. Proper planning demands that you think through a process before you implement, so that you don't implement and then start regretting the implementation. On the issue of what Murathe has said, I think one thing I like about the Azimio coalition is there's a lot of democracy. Anybody can say anything. At times there are personal opinions, at times there are party positions, and at times anybody can just go out there and shout in a funeral. So for me, if I were to put myself in Murathe's shoes, what I would say is I think there's so much enough work in Jubilee to be done by Morathe, even before he talks about other parties. How I wish he spared his energy and focused that energy on more on rebuilding Jubilee, which we all know is facing serious challenges, where most of the elected members have already aligned themselves with the Kenya Kwanza government, and a skeleton which it seems to belong to is the one which is remaining. So that could be personal opinion, but I think from where I sit as a member of Wiper Party, I think really we are enjoying a lot of democracy in Azimio, and we like it. And that doesn't mean that there's any division in Azimio. Kalonzo has a democratic and constitutional right to contest for presidency. And this has happened in the past. People have expressed interest in the past. As we approach the elections, we have come down to a round table. We've managed to discuss among us ourselves. And always we have come up and said, this is going to be our candidate this year. And then we move on. So there's nothing like saying, Hali. Kalonzo is just saying, I am exercising my democratic right and my constitutional right that I will be a candidate. And I think this, he has said it openly. It was on telly and in the papers. He has said 2027 for him seems to be the year to be. Yeah,
he's done it in 2007, 2007.
Yeah, because it's either he's there or he will never be there. So, you know, in a situation where you are saying it's either now or never, then you have to put into consideration a lot of other factors. And I think that's what Kalonzo, that's a message our party leader is communicating, that I've been so kind of patient, I've been so kind to allow my colleagues to take on this matter. Now time has come where if I'm not the one, then more likely I will never be. So, and I think this will be the debate when we get to that table now, the round table where we'll be discussing.
Right, but
what are the chances?
The writing is on the wall that it seems that there will be a breakaway in Azimio.
No, it doesn't mean that.
If Kalonzo has indicated in 2027 that he will not be supporting Raila Odinga, and
yes,
we have Murathe now indicating that he will be on the ballot as well.
No,
what is the point of being in Azimio?
As I said, when we get to that bridge, we'll be crossing it over, and we have crossed that bridge many times. Many times. You remember the last time?
Yeah, but
it was the same thing.
There's no point of crossing a bridge that you know it's creaking and it might even crash.
No, I don't agree with you on that. Because,
why would you want to cross a bridge that you know is creaking already?
So by now that when
the writing is on the wall.
That table, we always come up with that. Actually, the good thing is, you look at the history. If you analyze the history of coalitions, there has been always many members expressing interest, but at the end of the day, there will always be a member who is now the flag bearer, and the others will come and support. So we are saying, as we count others who are likely to come up from Azimio, Kalonzo will be one of them.
All right.
In the past, there has been many, and it has never cracked. So
Okay.
to me, I don't see any cracking. It's a practice of democracy within the party, or within the coalition.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Let me rope in Senator Danson Mungatana. Good to see you. As always, we began by celebrating the crossover to 2024, and it is good to see you that you're in perfect mint of health.
Thank you.
As you can see, you're glowing this morning. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So happy felicitation for the 2024.
Thank you.
Right. Let's just begin with Tana River. What is the current state of Tana River? Because we can see some of the residents are decrying the fact that the governor is not allowing them to go back to their residence after the floods. So they're saying it has subsided. They should go back home.
Yes. First of all, Happy New Year to all Kenyans. For us in Tana River, the lower parts of the Tana River county, we still had waters. Mm-hmm. So it was a very wet Christmas and New Year, but it is true the waters have subsided. And as is always the case, people rush back to planting because this is the time now to plant. And what people need now are seeds, which we had been promised by both the national government and the county government. And my appeal to the governor in particular is that he should, first of all, live up to the promise that they will stand with the people during their time of difficulties. Because during this period of time, we didn't see a lot of activity from the county government in terms of distribution of food. There was very little. But this time, he should redeem himself by making sure that seeds are available to the people for planting. That's the only way that maybe within 3-4 months, the food shortage situation will be stabilized. And because of that, I want to agree with the members of parliament who have called upon the government to make sure that children from Tana River County and other counties that were badly affected by the floods be allowed into schools without them being sent away. Because we know the bursary fund allocations were delayed. So let them be allowed without being chased away, because the situation, economic situation has been badly affected. Trade and the normal way that people raise funds, parents raise money, was badly affected by the flooding. It disrupted roads, it disrupted farms, it disrupted animals, breeding and everything. So the appeal is that they should be given special consideration. Otherwise, the main thing that is there now is to support the people to get the first crop out. Because once that is out, then everyone will be, the food situation will be stabilized, and the too much complaint will go down. And we hope that the rains now will go into a stable cycle so that we are able to feed our people and look after them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so I would like to know, you also being one of the consummate lawyers that we have in town,
yeah.
The Law Society had indicated that this week will be the week that they will be demonstrating. And are you part of that particular lot that will be demonstrating, or the ones that have decried that they will not be going to the streets to demonstrate because of prevalence of corruption in the judiciary? And what generally is your assessment as well from those pronouncements and the slagfest that is going on, and the president really going hammer and tongs on the judiciary?
I watched the clip. I wasn't there, but I watched the clip when the president was addressing the question of judiciary. And it was not a written script. It was a clip where someone was speaking from his heart. Yeah? And from where I sit and the way I understood that issue, it's very simple. That we have an institution that has rotten apples within it. That was the message. And that we are not going to accept the few individuals who have issues to destabilize the plans we have, okay? So it depends on interpretation. And like all of us lawyers, We see red can be white, white can be red, depending on how you interpret that issue. So from where I sit, I think questions need to be asked. You see, politicians will keep talking, and they will talk and they'll say their thing. But the questions that need to be asked is judiciary an independent institution? Yes. And the president indeed acknowledged in that clip that I saw. Now, the question that we also need to ask ourselves, is judiciary perfect? No, it is not perfect. And is judiciary the only institution that has issues with some rotten apples? No, it is not. We have talked about his own cabinet. There are problems there, okay? We have talked about the police. We have talked about other independent institutions. So the question is there a problem? And do we need then, if we agree that it's not 100%, it's not the choir band of angels from heaven, then let us agree that something needs to be done, okay? So what that needs to be done, first of all, we must have this discussion. Because what the president was saying we must have a conversation about this issue. Now, when I tell you, let us have a conversation about this particular issue, sometimes people fear judiciary, people fear our pastors, our pastors, the clergy, whether they are sheikhs or they are people of cloth in church. That's when we were in Shakahola, the probe. And then we said, let us have a conversation about, should people have qualifications before you start a church? Should people pay taxes? Should people preach anything according to their interpretation? Or should we have government coming in? Those were very difficult conversations. But we had them, and we have a report that we have tabled, and it has been adopted by the Senate, and we await for implementation. Now, the church is very difficult to deal with it. Judiciary is another hot potato. It's not like Parliament, it's not like Senate, it's not like National Assembly, it's not like the presidency, executive, because these are people who are changed all the time, Unlike the judiciary, unlike the church, when people become, you don't get elected to be a pastor and then elected after every 5 years. So there's no conversation about issues that go around the church. There's no conversation about issues that go around the judiciary. And they bear such heavy responsibilities. But when you say, let's have a conversation about this issue, there's a problem. Let's have a conversation. That issue becomes very sensitive. And depending on who has said it, where it is coming from, then there will be reactions, okay? Like when Raila was saying, there's a problem because of his cases, in the previous and even the recent one in the Supreme Court, there was a reaction on this other side, And because now it is the president who has raised the issue, there's a reaction on the other side. So I'm trying to tell Kenyans and to let people know that aside from the political noises, is there a need for us to have a conversation, a difficult conversation? Yes, there is a need. And then, is there a need for us to, find a way forward? Because you remember with Keraito Murungi when he was Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the kind of thing he did, there was no conversation. He just said, we're going to have a radical surgery, and he did things that had some issues with even the way the laws applied. But, the president is saying, do we need to have a conversation? Because he is saying, it is affecting me. It is affecting my policies, effectively affecting the things I promised to the people. It's affecting me. So do we need to have a conversation? I think it's a fair statement to say, yes, we need to have a conversation. And I am one of those people who consider myself an intellectual in politics. So let's have this conversation. Somebody shouldn't start saying, let us demonstrate, because when you start bringing politics into the whole thing, it hides some issues. So for me, I think just like we had a conversation about the church and religion, and how it's affecting our people, it is good for us to have a conversation, sober conversation, about the judiciary.
Thank you.
And if there are issues, how do we resolve them? We are not saying it should not be independent, people should be done what and what. No, we are saying if there are issues. In fact, the person who gave a very sober response is the president of the Supreme Court, Justice Martha Koome, she actually moved the conversation further by saying, no, look, if there are bad apples, there are processes. Can we identify, can we have the information, identify the individuals and deal with them according to law? So the Justice Martha Koome actually understood the issue, and she knows because she's the head of Judiciary. So let us not be emotional about it. I believe myself that when issues are tabled, we should have a discussion about them and maybe have a way forward.
But one is inclined to wonder, first of all, why the stanching of corruption within the judiciary will happen providentially now, when there are cases that the judiciary has made determination on, that is directly affecting the executive, especially when it comes to the constitution and it being the final arbiter as far as matters are concerned. There has been challenges, and he has also made the statement that the judiciary, it is an impediment, especially in trying to shake into place some of his policies, like the housing levy. These are being challenged. We've seen also the CAS, that is that particular office being challenged, the appointment of 50 CAS secretaries as well. That is unconstitutional, but it goes full steam ahead. So one will wonder, even if in the spirit or in the good-natured spirit of trying to stanch the flow of corruption and lance that boil of corruption. Why now?
Why now? Okay. Let me take you on that, Dibal, and I like this intellectual discussion we are having here. It is the season, okay? The season. Why is it that every time during December, the NTSA releases statements, very strong statements, advises people on how you should deal with matters to do with road travel? Why is it that it's at that time that traffic police are on alert? Why is it it's on that time that we have a lot of discussion about road safety, and what police needs to do, what government needs to do around Christmas period and the festivities time? It's because it's the season, okay? The season. And now when some of the things, the policies that the president believes should take effect from this year and whatever, and he feels they are being delayed, from his point of view, when he comes out and says, let's have a conversation, I think what he's saying is that, it's the season now to have the conversation. Road traffic accidents happen all the time, but there's a time that we actually sit down and talk about it. Now, these cases were happening from the time that the Ruto administration, we took over. Now, there's a time that the conversation must begin. Maybe at that time he was more dealing with the issues of inflation, the issues of petrol prices and whatever. Now, maybe he feels it's the season, you see. And he's a CEO in this country. When he says this is the time to discuss this, we will discuss it. So why now? I believe it is the season. And it is time then we discuss it. And the issue is should we discuss road accidents now, or in January, or in December, or in June? I think any time is a good time. But maybe this is the time for us to have that discussion, that conversation. And it's a very serious conversation, by the way, Dipala. It's a very serious conversation. If you are a $100 million investor from outside Kenya, and you have come, you have put up a factory, you have done what and what and what, and then somebody goes and gets an injunction against you saying that the property on which you are standing on, you didn't obtain it properly, and therefore you should stop functioning. You have 100 employees. It's a very serious conversation that is affecting this country. And I think, in all fairness, when the point is, just because it's being raised by one side of the divide in this country, it should not be demonized. I think the issue is there on the table. And maybe we need to find our way forward. What do we need to do if these issues are table?
Let's see from Dr. Jikal, because before we've seen the radical surgery that you're talking about, and even prior to that, we saw that there was a sort of a targeting that was there when it comes to these radical surgeries and probing the judiciary and vetting of the judiciary, because some of the judicial officers were not really playing ball to the tune of the government of the day. And maybe it's the same script that is being applied here, that we have some of the judicial officers who are not really playing book or playing by the book as far as the current administration is concerned, and that should be the target. Then they should be shown off the door, and then you'll have a free hand to try and do whatever you want without the impediment of a judiciary coming to bear. That has happened before. So the question is, again, are we seeing that the writing is on the wall, that we'll have another radical surgery that is being, fronted right now? We can see even within the police officers, we just had David Maraga's report. And what are they proposing? That we go again and have another police vetting. Why do we need this vetting? Why do we need this surgery? Are you seeing, or what are you reading from your leaves, Dr. Nikal? Just hearing from what Danson Mungatana is actually putting on the table.
I want to start from what happened and what was said and the reaction that have come from it, and also the basic principles underlying the whole thing that we now must examine. The president actually said he's not going to withstand and he's not going to accept the judges that actually go against his policies. Now, that is what actually people reacted very sharply, that if the president is saying, I'm not going to accept the decisions of the judges, it brings a very fundamental issue, the independence of the judiciary.
And I think we have a point of order. I want to interject there. I want you to play that clip. The president did not say he's not going to accept judges. The president didn't say he's not going to accept rulings. He didn't say that. He said we want to have a conversation. You know, we are before the public, and I have a lot of respect for Honorable Nikal, but let's not twist the words so that we can create a story out of it. We are not debating things. Let's put the facts. I wish you would play that clip and you say that truly the president said, I'm not going to accept judges, I'm not going to accept rulings. How come we don't have CASS up to now? How come the Finance Act was delayed up to now? Now, let's be fair. Okay. Let us make fair statements.
All right, you're being challenged, Dr. Nikal. Maybe you want to clarify on that.
But the reaction that actually came from the president's statement. And that is why Martha Koome, the Chief Justice, actually came out and said, if there is corruption in the judiciary, there are systems to address it. Why would she say there are systems to address it? She's saying that what the president is saying is not the correct way of going about it, and therefore we should follow the systems in place. Now, even when you play the message that came out, there's what you say and there's a message that comes out. I mean, communication is not just words. Communication includes demeanor, your demeanor as well, your facial expressions. And the message that came to people is that what the president is actually insinuating is that he's not going to accept those decisions. So from that, the Chief Justice said there are processes to be followed. So it brought the issue of independence of the judiciary. And that's why I think the Chief Justice reacted. It also brings another issue. The issues that came about, the cases that were made the president respond, actually are from laws that had just recently been passed. And those same laws, it was the health laws, it was the housing laws. Those same laws were actually very actively debated in Parliament, and there was a big difference. There were many people who felt on the floor of the House that actually we are not really doing things that are fair. He's a lawyer, my colleague is a lawyer and knows that, a respectable lawyer, and we said so. Then they passed in Parliament, and then they went and immediately the judiciary, so that there is a point on what was raised by the citizens who felt about it. It then raises another issue, to me, which I think is the basic, and I think that is the season, rather than the issue of limiting services, is the season where we are in Parliament, and we all know that actually Parliament is in some way captured the decisions that are being made in Parliament are not argued out. I've said in this forum that there are times that a motion is moved, is seconded, people call, they call for voting, and because of numbers, people vote. You go to a situation where the leader of majority is in Parliament and the majority whip, literally, the majority whip in particular, literally carry a card indicating what should be voted when it has not been discussed. So in that situation, you actually are likely to make laws that are not well considered. And when these laws are then being applied, then citizens who also have been watching realize that there are actually defaults in these laws. If they're implemented, even if you are going to give very good services, they'll bring a problem. Then they take them to court, the right thing to do. And the court finds and says, there is a matter to be discussed here, there is a case to be answered. At that point, what the court has said, yes, we see issues that are going to be deliberated out in the court. And so it says there is something. So my view really, that the season is, we're in a season of capture of Parliament by the executive. Therefore, we are getting laws that are going out there that are actually not within the standards that are required of the legal system. My colleague who is a lawyer will understand that, and therefore the citizens are reacting, and the judiciary kind of saying, okay, let's look, there's a point there. Now, that is the basic thing. It has brought to me in my mind another much more serious issue, that if you have a supermajority in Parliament, particularly the National Assembly, is it safe for the country, particularly if there's a lot of interference from the executive on this supermajority? What are the qualities of the laws that are being passed? It gives me the impression that the citizens are seeing this Parliament is no longer really able to serve us. And therefore, I think as a citizen, you actually feel that at least now we have the courts that will check what they're doing. The separation of powers, again, is being exhibited here, that the legislature don't seem to be doing a good job. They are captured somehow. Therefore, the citizens are now looking at the next one, which is the judiciary, and then the judiciary says, stop, let's look at this. And that's what they have said, and that's, as my colleague was saying, there is the judiciary that is actually raising the debate. And when the judiciary is raising the debate, then the president comes out very aggressively on this. The nation is bound to be worried. And that is what the worry is all about. So to me, let's look at what is happening in Parliament to begin with. Laws can't be passed, and the very time they're being implemented for the first time, the judiciary is finding that there could be a problem with them. And yet, Parliament itself is endowed from the Speaker, from the Speaker, the office of the clerk, the committees. There are a number of lawyers. My friend himself in the Senate is a lawyer. And so how would this pass that immediately then it is going to be challenged? And when it's challenged, the first reaction is a very serious reaction from that. And let me just say one thing that has even come. Again, our friend the lawyer is here. Even as much as the judiciary has stopped this, rightly so, as well, in their view, they have stopped it. They are going to have the matter is always going to be examined properly in court. But there is also the issue that, like the housing levy, people are still paying. If you have brought an injunction and you said, let's stop it for the time being, we look at it. The question says, what about the issues that are going on, like people are paying? The fact that you said we want to look at it means it can go either way. It can go the way that this is not right, this case has been won, this case has been lost. But people are already paying. So already we have an issue that whichever way this thing goes, or except if it goes in the way the case is lost,
But
then the collection is. But should it not?
Thank you.
Then we are now having this issue. What about those who are paid? So there are very fundamental issues here.
The case, the court was very clear as well that everyone should continue paying until the determination is actually done. So we are waiting for the 10th to know.
Agree with you, but that until the determination is done. Now that means the determination can go either way.
Then
now what the question
that is where we will cross the bridge.
The question I'm going forward to, should it then go the other way? What happens to those who are paid?
That's what we were saying then. We'll cross the bridge when we get there.
Maybe I can say something on that.
You will. No.
Just briefly on that.
No. I'll defer to Dr. Makali.
I'm just saying, sometimes the court can give an order to say that the injunction is granted, but with conditions. So on this one, they were saying the implementation, the collection should continue, and then the court has power, just to answer Dr. Nikal, that the court has power to also order that in the event that they lost, then the government should refund.
Fantastic. Okay, that's your worry. We'll latch into that much later. But I wanted just to ask Dr. Makali on this, because we have also a statement by the Senior Council Chairman, that is the Senior Council Bar Chair, that is Dr. Fredo Jambo. And he was also wondering and saying it is a matter of grave regret that the highest office in the land, namely that of the President of the Republic of Kenya, should sink as low as to presently undermine another of one of the other two pillars of any democratic state, namely the judiciary. Yet that is the essence and import of the most recent statement by the head of state regarding and aimed at the judiciary. And it says the rationale of the establishment of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 of three pillars of government, namely the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, which are independent of each other and having separate mandates, is to assure all Kenyans of all systems which will discharge impartial justice for all without fear, favor, or ill will. That can only be achieved where each of the pillars remain true to their jurisdiction and neither use undue threats or influence so as to diminish the effectiveness of the others. In particular, judicial authority is derived from the people and is vested and is to be exercised solely by the judiciary as established by the Constitution. In the exercise of judicial authority, the judiciary shall be subject only to the Constitution and the law and shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority. And of course, it continues on and on. It says that it is the best public interest and the ultimate welfare of the people of our land that we do not allow a slide into tyranny. That is what happens when the bastion of the justice is eroded and only the executive becomes the sole determinant and exponent of what is good, right, and proper for the people. I'll not read the rest of it because it's also a bit lengthy. But the question would be, again, because we've seen the president also making statements regarding the instruments of power, that, the sword I was given, I can use it. To try and, I don't want to misquote him, but it was in the essence of trying to say, I can deal with my opponents using the instrument or the sword that have been handed over by Kenyans. But that was solely to protect the Constitution. If we're talking about the president who is casting aspersions on another pillar of democracy of this country, what does it portend to Kenyans, to fellow Kenyans who are watching, first of all, on the integrity and the character and the efficacy of the judiciary, if the head of state, who should be a stabilizing figure and should also invoke confidence amongst Kenyans about these institutions, is the one who is raising accusatory fingers and talking about corruption within the judiciary. So how then am me as a citizen, be expected to actually have confidence in the judiciary if the president himself does not have confidence in one of his, because we believe this is like one body. So my arm is, it atrophies, it's rotting, it has a gangrene here. What does it tell about the whole body, the whole government itself?
I think the issue you're raising, Dibal, is quite fundamental, and I think really, let's put it into context this way. In this country, the sovereign power belongs to the people of this country, the 50 million plus. Now, what happens? All the three arms of the government operate on delegated power, delegated authority. The executive operates on that delegated authority. The parliament, the same. Judiciary, the same. And that's why, when you look at any democracy, and a functional democracy, we have three arms of the government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, we have the parliament. By expectation is that each of these three arms of government are independent. But there should be some element of interdependence when it comes to operational issues. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying that by design, and when you look at this constitution, those three arms of government, each has a whole chapter on it. I think Parliament is chapter, Judiciary is chapter 10, Executive is chapter 9, Parliament is chapter 8. A whole chapter. Now, providing what are the functions and what are the operational issues for each of the three arms. By design, we are saying if a proper democracy has to function effectively, then these three arms of government must be seen to be working. Why the three? Initially, the thinking was that this should provide checks and balances for each other. In Kenya, we have now brought the independent commissions, which seem to be like people would always claim to be the fourth arm. But historically, there are these three arms. Now, what we are saying, and I think this is why it's good that we have Mungatana here. What we are saying is, when you look at our current situation, it's not a secret, it's an open secret that Parliament has been captured, and I said that earlier, to an extent of almost about 80%. That now Parliament, where we sit, even though we can claim on Italy, we can claim anywhere that we have a bit of independence, I can tell you for sure, the way things have been done in Parliament, and I've been done in Parliament now long enough to say what I'm saying, is that you don't see that independence in Parliament. It's like the executive is able to get all their proposals through Parliament with minimal scrutiny and minimal objectivity. So that even whether the minority are saying this doesn't make sense, you find things are passing. And I think that is democracy, because democracy demands that the majority will have their say,
yes.
Then the minority will have their the majority will have their way, the minority will have their say.
Thank you.
We agree. So, but the other thing is,
so
now for the judiciary, it is very clear. And unlike the surgery which was done, the radical surgery which was done before the new constitution, now the new constitution is very clear what happens in the judiciary. If you have an issue with a judicial officer, as a Kenyan or as a government, the process is very clear on how to hire a judicial officer, how to discipline them, and even how to get them out of office. Very clear in the constitution. So we are saying, this country, corruption is cross-cutting. It is there in the executive, it is there in the parliament, it is there in the judiciary. It's not a secret, it's known. But we are saying, in a situation where you are claiming to have corruption in the judiciary, then the law is very clear on how you need to go about it to get that judicial officer out of office, if you need to get them out of office. It's not a matter of where we see our colleagues going on public barazas and funeral meetings and start castigating judicial officers. That is not what expected by this constitution, which entrenches the rule of law. So we are saying, if a judicial officer is involved in corruption, then please, we would want to see the executive using what the law says to take these judicial officers through the process and get them out of office. We get concerned when the president stands in a podium and says, my programs have been sabotaged by judiciary. And on the basis of that, I'm going to ignore anything which comes from judiciary. So I was imagining, if we all decide to ignore court orders,
No.
if we all decide to ignore court orders, allow me to prosecute my case.
No, play the clip. You are saying the wrong thing. The president did not say we ignore rulings of the court. The president is saying,
play the clip.
My producer will actually
look
for that
particular clip.
Can you finish?
I would want you to play the clip you played before Munagatana came in. The clip where, you know what I'm saying is informed by the clip you have just watched.
All the rulings should be ignored.
No, Mugatana,
that's what you said.
Mugatana, photo.
the clip.
There's a clip which has just been played here. With
Right.
our own colleagues.
Okay.
Our own colleagues.
What
In the
are our
presence-
colleagues? We are
in the
talking
presence
about
of
the
the president.
president.
You remember what?
We are talking about the
Just a
president.
moment. Okay, so let's just
Play
have
the
one
clip.
voice.
Yes.
Let him finish, then we'll look for that
There are
clip.
actually very many clips by the
By the
president.
president
By the
himself.
president.
Play the one that
So,
has raised the
we are
debate.
saying-
We take note of that. We will
We are
play
saying
it.
in a situation where the president sends clear signals that is like saying it is time to start ignoring court orders, then we actually very quickly go into another situation. And that's what we are saying. If we really believe in the rule of law, this is the document, the Constitution is the document to guide us. So, we don't want to see the judiciary going the way we have gone as Parliament, where we are saying majority will have their way, and then minority their say.
Thank you.
And these things just get wrong. This country belongs to all of us.
All right,
say something.
let me hear from you.
Gatana can take it up now.
No, let me say something. First of all, I want to and I have a lot of respect for them, and because they are elected by the people of Kenya, and because of that, I bow to them. They are the people's representatives. But when we are before the presence of the people here, let us state the facts as they are. Let us not say things which are not there. But the issue that you raised came from the statement of Senior Counsel Fred Odhiambo. Now, I wanted to say this. Whatever he is saying, that is first-year constitutional law principles. Every lawyer who has studied in Kenya, and indeed around the world, they will tell you those are first-year constitutional principles. When you stand and say Jesus Christ is a Lord, when you say heaven is, you will go to heaven when you do well, you will go to hell when you do wrong. Nobody challenges that. So what he's saying is an obvious statement of facts. But is that what the president is alluding to? Is he saying from today there'll be no separation of powers? That's not what he's saying. So let us not just talk, be verbose, talk, because of just one question. Can we have a conversation about the issues affecting the judiciary?
Right. But the question will be,
let me say this. Long statements like those means somebody has interpreted in his own mind what he thinks was said. And I started by saying, unfortunately, what the president was talking about was not written. He wasn't reading. So we cannot all say, this is the written script, so let us interpret it. What he said was what was played out. Now, what was played out, you can have your own interpretation, and indeed, my colleague here said, my colleague Nikal says communication has other issues apart from words. There's the composure, there is how you do it and all that. So
I don't follow that.
What I'm trying to tell you,
if the speech was written, it will have been, the reaction will have been diametrically different from him
absolutely,
speaking off
because
the cuff.
then when it is written, we can say for a fact that he, in fact, I would be telling you, give me the script that he said, we should not obey court rulings. Give me the script that he says, there should be no separation of power, as the senior counsel here is trying to suggest. What I'm trying to tell you is that...
So what I'm trying to say is this was an afterthought from the president.
He interpreted it, I'm talking about the senior counsel. He interpreted it in the way he understood it. And I'm telling you, from what I saw myself, he did not say there should be no separation of powers from today. He did not say, as is being alleged here, that we should ignore court rulings.
Right.
What he said, and what we need to agree, is that we should have a conversation about the issues affecting the judiciary. And before I said that, I said that judicial officers are not elected. So, and they are feared because they have important responsibilities they carry. Church officials are not elected, most of them, not the bishops in some churches, but by and large, once you become a pastor, you are a pastor for life. They are not elected, and they have huge responsibility. So whenever you say, let us have a conversation about the church, there's a problem, it becomes very worrisome. Whenever you say there's a conversation about judiciary, there's an issue. But when you say let's talk about parliament, let's talk about executive, there's no big issue, because we change these officers after 5 years.
Thank you. But the question I will learn just to ask,
but
before
let
I come
not
to
that
Dr.
fear
Nikal.
obstruct us from addressing the issues,
So
because they are our institutions.
What is the sole purpose of the Judicial Service Commission?
The Judicial Service Commission is like the Parliamentary Service Commission. It is actually the employer of the judiciary. Okay, the Judicial Service Commission would, run. Essentially, it's like executive of the whatever. They would post judges. They would make suggestions in terms of emoluments, and basically the organization of the whole institution of the judiciary. And
the conduct also of the
conduct
judges
also is part of it, yeah.
Fantastic.
Correct.
Would that be the proper channel for the president to actually air his grievances? Because if you're following the due process, and we're saying this is what every lawyer is actually calling for. There is a due process of raising concerns. If there are officers who have been implicated in corruption, and the president is fully attuned to this particular, of course, situation, that there are lawyers who are bribed because they want to challenge some of his policies and they have their names, what stops him from going to the Judicial Service Commission?
The answer to that is very simple.
Let me finish my question. Why would you come to,
the answer is very simple.
To give a broadside declaration on the issues of corruption?
The answer is very simple.
Which
and
is
it is
what?
simple like this. You know, people who are holding public office, Dibal, and I want you to understand, people who are holding public office, they hold a lot of trust from the general people. Okay? If today I'm president, yeah? If today I'm president and I want to arrest a colleague within the cabinet who is obviously corrupt, I will not just go to the house and pick him. I will prepare, because he holds a position of trust. Okay? He holds a position of, and the correct thing to do as a wise person. You don't, you know, the way I defer to Dr. Nikal and Makali here, Mheshimiwa Makali, is because they hold positions of trust. I can't treat him just, roughly. So if I want to go for that person, I have to prepare the same people who hold the trust. You see, that is why you will hear there will be action. There will be action, and then sometimes people then change, there will not be action. But they prepare the people, because those people hold positions of trust. Just like you can't wake up and go and pick the Inspector General of Police and say, oh, he knocked someone on the road, or he was involved in murder, or what. You prepare the people that some senior officials in government are doing the wrong things, and we are not going to accept it.
Dr.
Judges are not ordinary citizens. They hold constitutional offices, and whether you like it or not, you cannot treat them just like that. If there is a problem, then you have to prepare the people. You know, and when I'm
so preparing the people, he's telling the people.
I'm just saying. I'm saying
the
this.
broadside declaration.
I'm saying this, Dibal, and I want to repeat. Let us have a conversation about the problems that are there.
All right.
What is the problem with having a conversation?
Dr. Nikal, before I come to
why should we be, put under fear just because it is the church or just because it is the judiciary? Why aren't we under fear when it is Parliament being discussed, or the executive?
All right, what I fail to understand is the fact that the president will call out the judiciary on corruption. Also, we have some cabinets that have been embroiled in corruption, but he'll ask also institutions like the ESCC to probe these cabinet secretaries, right? What makes him not call out on the Judicial Service Commission to probe on the crooks that we have within the judiciary? Why can't you follow the same script? So it seems that you are speaking from both sides of the mouth. Right. Allow me just to take a short break. Allow me, when we circle back, we continue with that as well, on the double treatment that we see when it comes to some of the cabinet secretaries who have been involved in corruption. They're treated differently, right? It's calling on investigation on this cabinet secretaries. But when it comes now to the judiciary, it's all about the broadside declaration. What does it really portend for you and me on the integrity, on the efficacy,